Let me start out this shop update by over here at the socket drawer in the Mac toolbox. I need to update this toolbox. I've got some new things, but before I do that, I want to get it all put back together, everything put back in its place, which will be addressed later in this video. But one of the things that I need to do, there's a couple of things that I still need to get, and there's things that I don't like. I don't like these stands for the flex head impact sockets. They tip over every time that you open the drawer. They're not magnetized, so every time you open or close the drawer, they tip over, and I don't like that. The same thing happens over here, but I've kind of got them jammed in between socket trays, which really isn't a good thing. But anyways, they do have to be put back. There's a lot of things that are out right now and missing, and there's some other things that I need to get, but let's I'll address that in either another toolbox tour or another shop update after I get this thing organized and fixed. But let's continue on with the rest of the shop update from here. Okay, as part of a shop update, I'm over here at that Ford Expedition, and let me give you a little update on that. We came in here yesterday and pulled off the timing cover. We had to pull the power steering pump off to get that timing cover off, but we got that off, the power steering pump off, and got the timing cover off. Got the timing chains and everything off of it. Then came the hard part, the exhaust manifold bolts. Now, I couldn't understand up until this point why people couldn't get the heads off of this thing. Now I understand. The exhaust manifold bolts are, again, what we've got is steel bolts, cast iron manifold to an aluminum head, and as you have seen from this engine, and as you can see now, there is corrosion and corrosion. Well, that corrosion transfers into those bolts, and those bolts are just rusted beyond belief. And not only are they rusted beyond belief, the top ones are accessible, the bottom ones on this side, the passenger side, are inaccessible. What we had to do was pull off the air conditioning pump to help get to it. But even with us pulling that air conditioning pump off, there may have been a possibility of getting it between the bottom of the fender well and the top of the frame rail, but it would have been such an obscure angle that you would have never been able to get torque on it. The other side, the steering column, the steering linkage coming out of the firewall down to the steering box is in the way also. So much so, then what we thought we would do is pull the manifold and the exhaust pipes apart, but we're not sure that we could get the head out with these manifolds still attached without damaging it in some way. Yeah, aluminum heads are very susceptible to scratching, marring, etc. So at this point in time, what we're kind of thinking of is that it might be easier just to pull the engine out. The engine will come out of here without too much trouble. Again, and I think I've discussed this in another video, how much room there is in here, how much room that fan shroud takes up. It's ridiculous how much room that fan shroud takes up. This engine could have been moved so much further forward if that fan shroud had been reduced in size. Moving the engine forward would have facilitated us being able to disconnect a lot of the stuff in the back much easier, let alone try and reconnect it once we start putting this stuff back together. And I've discussed that in other videos too, but the problems with the design of this vehicle just keep going on and on and on. You know, I've said in other videos on this and other segments of videos on this that the engineering department for Ford Motor Company should be shot for coming up with something this stupid. And I can't reiterate that enough. I mean, it's just blatantly terrible. I mean, really, the whole thing starts with the design of this engine. The problems that they have with this engine, the spark plugs, there's a lifter issue with this engine where some of the lifters will seize up and create the putting a valve into the top of the piston. It's just ridiculous, the amount of issues with this vehicle. But anyways, I regress, and I keep going on that point because it's so blatantly terrible. But what we've decided to do is try and just pull the engine out and be able to work on that engine, because we know just by looking at them, regardless of the fact, if we can get to them or can't get to them, that we're going to probably break exhaust manifold bolts on this thing. And then, you know, we're going to have to go through the problem of trying to get them exhaust manifold studs out of there, because they are studs with nuts on the end of them. One of the things that I've looked at, and I haven't done any research at this, for some reason on both sides of the engines, on the two back cylinders on both sides of the engine, the bolts out of the exhaust manifold are missing. Now, again, I haven't gotten into it. I don't know whether that was a design. If they put bolt holes in the manifold but didn't put threaded outlets in the heads, if somebody has left them out for some reason, but both the upper and bottom bolts on both sides of the head on the rear cylinders of this engine are missing. Anyways, I'll let you know what goes on and how we come about getting the engine out, or what issues that we have with getting the engine out. Bring you back. Okay, it's Monday morning and I'm in here in the shop early. I've got to make a run to pick up a couple of more tank brackets for the haul truck, but I just thought I'd give you a brief update on this. What we did is my grandson came in yesterday and he worked a little bit on this while I was doing something else, but he basically what we had to do was go out and get a nut extractor try and get the exhaust apart, what we're going to do is pull the engine out, as I had said in previous clips. We're going to pull the engine out, but we could not get the exhaust disconnected. So what we did is went out and got a nut extractor, and it worked fine. Now, I have stud extractors or bolt extractors or screw extractors, but I never had a nut extractor. I've never had the need for one so far. I mean, I've had trouble getting nuts off before, but usually what happens is the bolt or stud breaks before the nut lets loose, or it's in such a place where you can get like a pipe wrench type of thing on it and take it off. I mean, a nut's a nut. Whether you destroy it taking it off doesn't really matter. If it comes off, then you just get another nut to put back on it. But yeah, we went out and got one. He went to Advanced Auto, and it was an one set. Let me see if I can one hand this. Not even sure how it opens up. I'll bring you back and show it to you. And there it is. So it's the kind where if you have a long stud, you could run it up through and also get a like put a socket or put a wrench onto it to get it to go. But it did work. It worked just fine. Now there are two of them that he can't get to, that they're going to end up having to be cut off anyways. But I mean, it's not like we'd never use this thing again. So there we go. There's the update on the Ford, and a little update on a bolt. They call it a bolt grip. I guess you could put it around a bolt stud. I don't know whether it would fit, but we used it for nuts. I'll bring you back. Let me talk about something for a minute regarding the shop. And let me refer to a job that I was on one time. I worked in a new build. I worked in a lot of nuclear power stations and the nuclear industry, non-power station related. But one job that I did was a new nuclear power station, and there were shifts, day shift, night shift. And it was you were required to work 10 hours a day if you were a fitter. But on this job, there was 2,000 fitters on the day shift, 1,000 electricians, and then a myriad of other trades, tin knockers, carpenters, laborers, just all sorts of people on this job. But this job was done long before the advent of cordless power tools. And as you can well imagine, in a nuclear power station, there was a lot of welded pipe. There was a lot of welding going on. Not only pipe fittings, but hangers, seismic hangers. There was seismic hangers of the main steam feed pipe that came out of the secondary reactor secondary containment of the reactor into the turbine generating room, where there was seismic bracing on that pipe that in reality was as big as a house. But anyways, I regress here. So with the given the fact that there were so many people on this job, and given the fact that it was kind of before cordless power tools were in, there were welding leads and extension cords, electrical cords all over the place. There was banks of welders, and anybody that was doing a weld, and there was a lot of welding going on, not only the pipe welding, but the hanger support welding and structural welding in the building. There was banks of welding, or banks of welders, and if you had a weld to do, you were assigned a certain welder and a certain lead, and the lead got strung from the welder out to the area where you were working in on stands, trees. They called them cable trees, kind of like a coat rack, except they strung cables along them, both electrical extension cord type cables or welding lead type cables. But it got to the point where, you know, you would do a weld in one area, or somebody would do a weld in one area, that cord would be strung into the area for that, and then after that was done, they would be assigned somewhere else, and nobody actually really took that welding lead and picked it up. So what they used to have is roll-up days, where you would spend the first 4 hours of your shift rolling up unused and extension cords and welding leads. Well, the same is kind of true for shops. You know, we've got a bunch of things, or I've got a bunch of things going on in the shop. My grandson is working on this Ford Expedition, and we've got tools all over the place for that. I'm working on the haul truck, and I've got tools and stuff all over the place for that. And it's getting to the point where, you know, we take tools out and use them, and they don't really get picked up and get put away when they're tools that aren't reused on other things. So I think I'm going to call a roll-up day here and pick up everything, reorganize the toolbox, and get everything back in its place. But you know, it's something that everybody's got to deal with, and sometimes, I guess, you know, if you're kind of a one-man guy and you only got one thing going on at a time, it doesn't become an issue. But if you got a multitude of things going on, and you don't really get back to some of the things right away, you have a tendency of leaving stuff laying around. But I just wanted to make that observation. Shop looks like a pigsty. So normally in my shop update, I'll sometimes throw in some things about some hauls that I made, either showing some of the drive or discussing the haul itself. And I've got a couple of them in the books, and but I don't think I'm going to put it in the shop update. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post a separate video on it because one of them could be a little bit lengthy, and anyways, I don't think it should go in the shop update this time. What I'm over here at the welding table. I've got some material here that's going to be used for brackets and suspension components on the haul truck. Now, I'm not going to get into how they're going to be used in a shop update, but I just want to say that I do have this material, and it's going to be coming up. The discussion on how it's going to be used will be shown in the haul truck series. Probably the fabrication of it will be shown in a shop update. The bracket that's going to be made out of this channel iron isn't that complicated, but the suspension components for the truck could involve some rolling offsets, some compound miters and rolling offsets that have to be welded up. So that will be coming up. Probably not sure if it'll be the next shop update or the shop day update after that, but it will be coming up, some fabrication work here. But anyways, guys, that'll do it for this shop update. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe, and special thanks to all those guys that provided their well wishes for my great-granddaughter. It all worked out.